and is also weighing possible regulation for this virtual currency. Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, who also sits on the Senate Budget Committee, joins us now from Washington. Senator, always great to have you back on this program.
Morning, Betty.
So on Bitcoin, do you expect that that Congress is going to take some legislative action on regulating Bitcoin?
I hope. Certainly not right away. I think at this point in time, the hearings to a certain extent legitimize these virtual transactions. And what we need to do here in Congress is we certainly need to be monitoring these things and trying to understand exactly where this is going to take us. But quite honestly, nobody really knows. I think there are many positive aspects of these online currencies or these virtual currencies, but there are also some dangers. So I think it's very appropriate to hold these hearings. I think we need to be aware of them. We need to monitor them. But, you know, I don't think, quite honestly, the federal government's going to be intelligent enough to figure out how to regulate them in any way, shape, or form.
Senator, I'm just curious, when did you even hear about Bitcoin?
I've been following this for a number of months now. It's pretty fascinating how they're created, how people can mine them using, very supercomputers, and you've got to be a real math whiz to actually mine them yourself. But they're online trading. I think the value is now $700. So yeah. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating, and nobody really fully understands it right now.
But what's your biggest
except probably the creators?
Right. I don't even know if anybody understands exactly how it works and what the impact could be. So, Senator, what would be or what is your biggest question on Bitcoin?
Well, exactly how is this going to be monitored? I'm certainly concerned about using them for money laundering or other kind of nefarious activity. But let's face it, we're in a brave new world here with the internet. There are no borders on the internet in many respects.
Yep.
So I'm not sure how any government can actually regulate this. It's a form of online bartering is kind of how I view it. And I don't know there's much that we can really do other than try and monitor it, be aware of it, and we'll just see how this progresses.
But do you see it as more rewards than risks?
Oh, listen, I think anybody trading in Bitcoins, it's caveat emptor for sure. Buyer beware. I'm certainly not doing it. And I think anybody who's willing to take this kind of risk needs to understand they're taking a risk. It's not regulated. You're really relying on this Bitcoin Foundation to totally monitor this themselves and make sure that it has some integrity.
Senator, let me pivot here and talk about another topic that you have been hammering on over the last year or so, which is health care reform, the Affordable Care Act. And, the president came out last week with some sort of resolution for those who lost their insurance. He said, look, he's going to ask insurance companies and he's going to ask states to uncancel some of those plans. That's not going to be adequate for you?
Well, first of all, what President Obama is primarily trying to do here is trying to shift the blame for those canceled policies away from himself, away from Obamacare, and onto the insurance companies. At this late date, I'm not sure how quickly the insurance companies can really react. In our state, there are about 22,000 Wisconsinites that enjoy the high-risk pool. Those things are pretty well obsolete, although I appreciate the fact that Governor Scott Walker is actually calling the legislature back in to try and reconstitute those high-risk pools at least for a few months to give us some relief until we can sort all this out. But
right.
The problem, Betty, is we're so far down the tracks on the implementation of Obamacare, and insurance companies have totally reformulated and restructured their products, and they've gone through all the state regulators to get everything approved. It's very difficult to turn on a dime and reverse all that. So an awful lot of damage has been done. I think it's... Go ahead.
But you're saying, but you have said on the record that you want to just repeal Obamacare altogether. So you not only...
Absolutely.
I mean, talk about reversing some of these moves. You want to actually just cancel the whole thing.
We do, but we also have to recognize how much damage has already been done, and we're going to have to certainly give the insurance companies some time to restructure their products back to, not having to comply with all these mandates, which is what is driving up the cost, which is what is making Obamacare unaffordable, and which is causing all these insurance policies to be canceled. So again, there's a lot of harm being done. We do need to act swiftly through legislation, which is, I think a good piece of legislation would be if you like your health plan, you can keep it act. That's my piece of legislation that covers all policies, not just individuals,
right.
And also long term. So we've got to restore freedom and choice within our health care market. That's what Obamacare takes away and takes out of our health care market.
Well, Senator, what about this idea that's been floated, perhaps, to try to get past this whole healthcare.gov debacle to allow insurance companies themselves to enroll people in plans?
Well, of course, the problem with that is, Obamacare, the only way it reduces costs for individuals is through taxpayer subsidies. Who's going to determine those subsidies? Now do we have to turn private income information over to insurance companies? Betty, this is so incredibly complex. I certainly understood that millions, tens of millions of Americans were going to lose their employer-sponsored care, their individual health plans. President Obama, committed a huge fraud, basically, on the American consumer, and we're seeing the consequences of it. So now it's time for...
on the flip side, Senator, though, you've got people who've also attested to the fact that now they've got better coverage, and they have coverage when they couldn't get it before. So what about those people?
Well, sure, there will be some people that, because of taxpayer subsidies, will be able to get insurance at a cheaper price. But there are also millions of Americans, cancer survivors, that are losing access to their doctors and to their treatments. So, overall, this is a disaster. This is not going to improve quality. It's not going to reduce price overall. An analogy is the car market, where if you want a Ford Fiesta, now basically the federal government's telling you, no, you've got to buy a fully loaded SUV, whether you can afford the gas, whether you have the parking spot or not. So this is government intrusion into your life, and it's simply not going to work, and we're seeing that right now.
All right. Senator, always great to have you with us this morning. Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin there on the Hill. Coming up, we're going to talk with Rudy Carson.